Hello, folks. Want to personally wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holiday season as we close out 2023. This is an interesting show that we have right now where my goal is to provide a transparent recap to 2023 from a betting perspective. We came out at the end of the year with a modest 5% ROI, up 9.5 units by picking our spots, taking a measured approach each time out. And one of the keys here when you are tracking your plays, make sure that you're tracking with a reputable third party tracked system. I have logged my picks at betmma.tips. There are a few other sites out there, but from my perspective, betmma.tips has been good to me throughout the years, and it's an accurate representation of a tracked betting record. You look up and down my tracked record, and you see that this year, most of my success was accomplished via straight betting line plays, money line plays. I was unsuccessful at the betting window from a prop perspective. If you look at the ROI in that realm, and then you also take a look at the parlays and broke even basically on parlays for the year. But what I like about betmma.tips is you can dig into weight class. You can dig into different organizations to see where you are effective. You can look at your bets on previous fighters. There are many different approaches that you can take to sift through all of the data and then find your strong points and your weaknesses, and then in the future capitalize on that. And if you look at my record here, I've posted screenshots from my betmma.tips tracked record, and you see the trajectory of the graph on one side of your screen has been uptrending since 2018. Now, this is my sixth consecutive tracked winning year. I have to put that out there. And I also want to make clear one of my proudest accomplishments is also that in 2023, my worst night that I had was a minus 2.5 unit event. So under 3 unit loss was my worst night of 2023. And that's been done by picking spots and making sure that if we are going to take risks, risk management is an important part of the process, that we want to maximize wins and minimize the losses. And I was able to methodically have safety gaps in place, safe gaps in place to minimize the losses. So worst night of the night was minus 2.95 units. And then you talk about the bet of the year. The largest bet of the year that I ended up making was on Vitor Petrino. And that came towards the end of the year. He's a fighter. If I'm looking to invest in a fighter in their future, Vitor Petrino has a very bright future. I know he took on Modestas Bukauskas in that matchup, and that was a spot where we laid the hammer. And you look up and down the record, and what I love about betmma.tips is there's nowhere to hide. Your picks are plugged in, and most of my plays in 2023 were free plays. Yes, there were a few plays that were behind a paywall. And you look at 2024 as we head into the new year also, I have a number of plays up, free plays that are available at betmma.tips. And the key here is to pick your spots. And I'm a big fan of taking a methodical, measured approach each time out. And this year ended up with a 5% ROI. I typically, the previous year had a 10% ROI, and then you look back, 2021 only a 1% ROI. Prior to that, 2020 13% ROI. So We have managed to successfully navigate the terrain year after year after year after year after year after year. And the key here, you look up and down the leaderboard on on betmma.tips, and there's a lot of volatility. Some folks will have a solid year, then the next year they will lose all of those profits and they'll have a down year. And then I believe the key here is to look at the history and the style of betting that works for you. If you're in to make a quick buck, then you may want to check out handicappers who have a more risk heavy approach if you're wanting to make some big bucks real quick, but that has the potential to backfire on you, and that is a dangerous proposition. I say beware of any handicapper who's losing 15, 20, 25, 30 units, which means 20, 30% of their bankroll on any given event. That's not a situation that you want to put yourself in unless you want to take big risks. And I personally um, prefer to take a measured approach every time out. And this is a situation where you're chipping away one fight at a time throughout the course of time. And at the end of each year, since 2017 was my last time I had a losing year, this seems to be working out fairly well, and I'm gonna continue to evolve, and that's a key here too. To take a look, sift through the data, um, I've noticed that there are certain weight classes that are more volatile than others. One thing that I weeded out of my process, the low level women's mixed martial arts matchups in 2023, I made a concerted effort to purposefully avoid those fights from a betting perspective, and that seemed to pay dividends in my eyes here. And I've tried to intentionally target fighters who will fight hard for your money, tooth and nail, cardio heavy fighters. The other component of my game that I've purposefully sought out. Um, they say ABC, always bet cardio, but also if a fighter has a significant grappling edge, that they have the ability and the potential to burn time in top position, and that is a recipe for success. We must also mention that towards the end of 2023, we started to notice as far as the judging criteria and how fights are scored, that there was a lot of emphasis placed on damage. And you saw in certain fights where, when it came to judging, there were situations where fighters were being rewarded for landing significant strikes while they're on the bottom. And also, even if they are stuck on bottom, if they were to have any margin of success on the feet and then spent most of the round on their back, there were situations where they were rewarded because they were landing the more damaging strikes. So a bit of a mixed bag, there. And the key here is that we take this information and that we put it into the memory bank and into the well of knowledge and continue marching forward one fight at a time. And the key here also is, if you are tailing anybody, just make sure that there is a third party tracked record, that there is a backbone of success here. A lot of folks out there had losing years this year. So make sure you take time to do your due diligence and research the track record, if there is one. There are a lot of folks in this industry who do not have a track record, and they do not have one that's easily accessible. Another thing to mention is there are a lot of handicappers who do not put their bet MMA tips or their handicapping record in their profile. You have to hunt for it. You have to search for it. You see folks out there who change their betting handicapping name. They change their persona. They reinvent themselves. That tracked record that was once available a year ago is now gone and nowhere to be found. So just beware of folks who take that approach. The other situation, something that you should be aware of, is folks who are putting work behind a payroll, but they do not have any semblance of a track record, or they do not speak of the tracked record, and that is an issue as well. So I highly recommend seeking out folks who, after each event, that they come out and tell you how the performance went down, that they own their losses and they own their wins. And I believe that is, if this is a long-term game, this is something that should be part of the handicapping process. So I'm not saying I'm God's gift to MMA betting. I've never had that approach. I am very cautious of folks who believe in delusions of grandeur, and you see it all across the landscape. People have a winning year or have a couple of winning years, and then they come off as if there's some higher power, and that is the furthest thing from the truth. We're all humans here. And the other thing is, we are banking on the decision making of two humans inside of the octagon, and also the judges who are making the determination. And there are no certainties in this game. That's another huge pet peeve of mine, is folks who speak in certainties. There are no certainties in this game. Yes, we deal with implied probability, and that's a big part of the process here, where we're assigning implied probability and odds, determining which fighter percentages, victory, how we see the fight playing out. But also, if there are handicappers out there who have difficulty assigning implied probability, and their implied probability is downright wrong, then they run into some serious issues, and you see it time and time again. And the issue is also, some of the loudest voices we hear in this industry may not be the sharpest folks. They may just be beating a drum and coming out, and folks who believe they're sharp then may not necessarily be sharp. And I am of the mindset that a humble approach is the best approach to take. I've always believed in that. Never think you're bigger than the game. Always be willing to learn. The day that I think I know everything is the day that I walk away. That is 100% fact. I am not going to sit here and act like I know everything. I may have watched every fight in UFC history and been to many of them and been around longer than most folks who watch these fights, but I'm still proof that you can teach an old dog new tricks, and I'm continuing to evolve year after year. And as you can see, there are folks touting who do have significant losing records. Maybe they've lost 2 out of the last 3 years, 3 out of the last 4 years, 5 out of the last 7 years. Maybe they had a winning year in 2018 and they're still living off of that in their tracked record. So beware of anybody who comes at you on the Twitter timeline speaking in certainties. This will happen. This will happen. And the other thing is, we live by the sword, we die by the sword. If you are breaking down fights and you're putting your opinion out there into the Twitter world, onto the YouTube world, you have to be willing to accept when you were wrong and acknowledge when you are wrong. And yes, there are times when I've been wrong before, and there will be times in the future where I'll be wrong again. But the key here is that you come out the other side in the long run on the winning side. And thank you, Shady, for your support. Appreciate you. Merry Christmas. Happy holiday season to you. So you want to come out the winning side, and you have to be willing to take some risks to do that. Of course, they say scared money don't make money, but you have to take intelligent risks. And if you are tailing somebody who's out there losing 20 plus units on a given event, that means 20+% of their bankroll on any given event. That could be a recipe for disaster, especially if you're expected to go back to the well again and ante up and attempt to win back that money that you lost. So pick your spots, one fight at a time. Those are my mottos here. And the key here is to take a measured approach, one fight at a time, and find a handicapper that works for you. There are approaches that some folks have that others may not advocate for. So if you're asking my professional opinion, and the proof is in the pudding here, I have my tracked record down available, and it's in my profile. That should be an indicator of the style of betting that folks may have. So, again, 6 consecutive winning years. Looking forward to making it a seventh in 2024. Hard to believe we're headed towards 2024, and we'll continue this journey. So, looking forward to UFC 297, UFC 298, UFC 299, UFC 300, and beyond. And this is a long-term game. You need to be comfortable in your own skin. If you are down a few units, you know, don't completely change your strategy and abandon what got you to the show. That's the key here too. You don't want to. I've noticed this also, that some handicappers will alter their style once they've seen some semblance of success. They may start throwing 5-unit plays out there after they've been successful with 1.5 or 2-unit plays. So the key here is to work your magic and do what you have to do to get to where you need to be. And then don't stray away from that unless you're willing to, unless you're willing to take many trips to the fridge. And I'm going to be doing that this year. I have a number of matchups that are on the refrigerator. Some of them have already been posted for free plays in 2023 at my betmma.tips site. But there will be many more. And the key here is find a strategy and a guide that works for you. And the other huge component here also is, I believe that there's a semblance of entrepreneurship that comes with MMA handicapping. If you're putting yourself out there, you want to spend as much time as you can breaking down the fights, not necessarily promoting yourself and selling. Let your work speak for itself. I believe that is the key here. Let your work speak for itself. It's interesting how a lot of folks will become the business side of things, and the marketing side of things will take over. And I've never been somebody who believes in that strategy. I believe that let your work speak for itself, and one fight at a time. And the love for the sport is key here too. You need to have a passion that runs deep, because there will be peaks and valleys. There will 100% be peaks and valleys. By the way, thank you for subscribing to the channel. I appreciate you taking the time to do that. So I appreciate everybody for chiming in and taking a look back at 2023, and 2024 is right around the corner. So remember to go get what's yours. Take one fight at a time, and let's continue this journey together. And the key here also is do the independent work as well. If you believe strongly that you have an inkling or a suspicion that the other side of the fight is the right side, let's hear it. Let's talk about it. I believe that that's important as well. And Shady, you mentioned structure and discipline. That's a key component here, especially the long-term gain and games. You don't want to give away everything that you worked for. Remember how hard it was to build those bankrolls, and you start out small and everything continues in an upward trajectory. Look at the graph. Look at the graph since 2017. It's continued to trend upward year after year after year after year. And let's keep doing this. So cheers to you. Have a phenomenal Christmas and holiday season, and let's get back to it in 2024, one fight at a time. Let's go, my brothers. Let's go.